Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Every moment is sacred, where we interweave meditation and healing into everyday life. I am your host, Rain Elizabeth Stickney. Now, let us begin. Hey, it's February. It is the first episode in February 2023 of Every Moment is Sacred. Thank you so much for being here. And I have a delightful conversation to share with you with two beautiful souls, Vera and Andrés. They have a podcast called The Peculiar Exchange that has not launched yet, but will soon. And I am so excited about their show because, as you will hear, they are the most amazing people. They are so fun to talk with. In fact, I enjoyed my conversation with them for their show so much that I'm sharing that conversation with you. You will get to find out a little bit about me and my life story, my view on healing and nature, and you'll get to hear interesting things like, do I get lonely? How do I handle my emotions? What is my favorite way of eating peanut butter? Which I think that peanut butter part comes in part two. This conversation is a long one, and so I broke it up into two pieces. You get to listen today, and you get to listen next Friday as well. So let me tell you a little bit about Vera and Andreas, and they are just so sweet and amazing. I'm going to read to you what they wrote about themselves. Vera is a multi-passionate person with depressive tendencies. Me too. I have depressive tendencies as well. Anybody else out there? It happens. Depression exists. Vera is originally from Portugal and she moved to the UK to develop her day job. She is currently exploring avenues such as consulting, inventions, figurine decoration, illustration, media, and podcasting. Vera is looking to reignite the creativity of her inner child and invite her to come out to play, which is so wonderful because our conversation is so playful and we all acknowledge that in different ways. So you'll hear the word play a few times. We all like to play, and this is a very playful share. You can find Vera at the Peculiar Exchange podcast and Instagram page. And let me share with you about Andreas. Andreas is a story observer, researcher, compilator, editor with tendency to have seldom his feet on the ground. Originally from Spain, Andreas moved to the UK following other Irish adventures. He is currently in the undoing project of making sense out of life, an eternal struggle to understand his rebel character's behaviors, endless ingestion of new podcasts, impending walks owed to his body, and the peaceful descent to the fabric of our reality. Looking forward to the end of his intimate anxiety via inner surrender and personal traits acceptance. You can find Vera and Andreas at the Peculiar Exchange podcast and Instagram page. So there you have it. These very unique and amazing and beautiful individuals, these life enhancing, free flowing souls, playful in existence. I hope you enjoy this conversation. And especially if you do, tune in again next week for the second part. And in the meantime, Thank you again for being here. I am getting great feedback and I love what I do and I love sharing this with you. And one more way you can support this show, if you would like, is you can become a patron on Patreon. And there you would find Rain Elizabeth Healing Arts, and you would either choose the tier for this show, which is Sacred Souls. Every moment is sacred podcast. There's an amount, but you can also just choose your own amount. This is something that's not very clear on Patreon, but you can also choose to be a patron at an amount that feels right to you. So, without further ado, find out how Vera and Andreas look into my soul, examine me thoroughly, and pull out tidbits of information in the most elegant and beautiful way.
Who is Rain Elizabeth Stickney?
Whoa. Oh, good question. Let's see. Rain Elizabeth Stickney is a woman in her late 40s and a mother and a partner and an avid gardener, although I am a hobbyist gardener, so I don't know a lot about what I'm doing. It's a lot of experiments.
What can I say? Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys understand that. Yeah, I'm a lover. I'm in love with nature and people and healing. I enjoy what I consider to be true happiness, which is a happiness that includes all of the feelings. So if I'm having a depressed day one day, that doesn't mean I'm not happy. It just means that there's some depression moving through. And that understanding of true happiness has been really important for me.
I just need to interrupt you because I'm getting goosebumps. That's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Something else you feel like saying?
Yeah, well, it's just wonderful to have all parts of self allowed in myself and in others. So as I'm meeting both of you, like whatever you're coming with is perfect. And I love that idea of being just as things are.
Fantastic. I just absolutely love that introduction. I think it feels so true and seamless, but at the same time so encompassing.
To be honest, it's actually quite interesting that you embrace both. I mean, the good and the bad. It's something like the depression and the joy. It's like you see everything from a more conscious point of view. It's something like you are more interested about consciousness.
This is true.
Yeah,
very insightful for you to see.
No, I mean, it's basically, well, Vera knows, I am also engaged in these Zen sessions, okay, every Monday. We're a group of people, okay, actually coming from exactly the same place, most of them, okay. Yeah, basically one of the things that we are all the time exploring is in terms of, people, when I say people, I include myself and all of us, okay, that we tend to think that we only want the good, and we keep completely the bad, you know. And actually, there are equal sides of of life. Basically, you have to accept both of them in your life because they're gonna happen anyway, So. Yeah.
So wise.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, it is like this. I mean, basically,
it's true. It's very true. We often talk about these things, and sometimes we both have moments of feeling low, and we're always trying to work in that, and in kind of in the acceptance of that, which is really tough. So what you've said is just completely resonated with us, especially today. We've been both a little bit low, so when you said that, we're like, yeah, exactly. So that's definitely resonates. So, and this actually goes neatly into the name of your podcast. Every moment is sacred.
Yes. And I named it that exactly because I believe that's true. Every moment is sacred, and we have a lot of celebrations as well as heartaches in a lifetime. All of us do. And every one of those moments is sacred.
So like honoring each moment, right? And I hear a lot about learning from the difficult experiences, but somehow this message of yours is slightly different. Does that feel that way?
Yes, for me, it is different because it's allowing of that deep sadness that can arise through grief or loss or change, that upwelling of depth of emotion is just as sacred as those moments where we are joyous and we're sharing our light abundantly and we're dancing and we're singing for pure enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But no moment is more sacred than the other. It's sacred that we're here and we get to be human beings. We get to feel, we get to relate, we get to have things that we lose and people that we lose, and we get to have experiences that change and things that we look forward to. And it's all sacred, especially when we treat our lives as sacred.
And the other thing I wanted to say, as I was saying that as well, is it feels less almost forceful compared to, oh, something was difficult or I did something that wasn't what I wanted to do and I must learn from that. And your message feels more like just sit with that, just accept it.
Yeah, let's be here first. Let's just be here first.
Yeah, I have a question about precisely, what we were thinking, well, what we were mentioning, about being present, I mean, only if you want to answer it, of course, because it's a personal question, it's how do you deal with sadness? What's your relationship with sadness? If you can elaborate a little bit more about it.
I have had a lot of sadness in my life. And it really began with my mother leaving our family when I was 4. And my sister was 2. And I have a very big family. So there are step and half sisters as well, or brothers too. But my sister, who's 2 years younger than me, she and I are the closest for me. And it wasn't just my sadness with my mom leaving, but it was her 2-year-old hysteria when our mom left that is the first memory I have of being really, really, really sad. And that's been thematic in my life around people coming and going, relationships ending, like different moments in my life that I can get triggered around that will bring up the sadness. Often has something to do with somebody I love not being available in a way that I want or need. So my way of being with that sadness as it comes up in myself is to feel it completely. And just the other day, I was very sad about something and I was having a very big cry, the kind of cry that you might hear from a child that's filled with sound. I was sobbing. I was sobbing.
Okay.
And I find that to be important and valuable to let free. So I got to be free of those emotions because I got a chance to feel them.
Yeah. You said that, and I hope I don't get too emotional here because you just reminded me of the moment in my life where that primal scream was the strongest. It actually happened in this room. Is when my sister told me that my dad had passed away.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so that really resonated, that primal need to actually voice that pain. The kind of strange thing in a way, my dad had an 18-month illness and then passed away, and we saw him suffer for that time. And I used to say to pray. I usually say pray to the universe because I like it to be a bit less religious, and I used to pray to the universe and say, if this is only the way that he's going and he's going to keep on suffering, please let him go. And as I was screaming, I said thank you. So it was like a mixture of relief for my dad for his suffering, and at the same time when you were saying about not having access to the people you love, that really resonated with me.
I'm so sorry to hear about your father's passing.
Thank you. Thank you. As I say, I just wanted to say this because it really resonated with what you were saying and how being in contact with those feelings is so important. So thank you for sounding that, because it's very rare you'll hear someone say and be so vulnerable to say, you know, I was sobbing, I was actually sounding that pain. So that's amazing.
Thank you for hearing me. I'm glad that there's resonance between us.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. Just taking a breath here, because I want to center myself and I want to keep this communication with you, because I think it's an amazing connection, even with these few minutes that we're speaking. I was going to say something about, I read something about you saying about the natural life force in us in the healing, and I feel like it goes neatly with this as well, with being able to sob. And when you were saying about sobbing and healing, and maybe would you like to expand on that connection?
Sure. What a beautiful, beautiful question. I do believe there is a natural life force within all of us that is innate to our being and includes our physical being. And that natural life force can simultaneously always be present, but also sometimes be impeded depending on our decisions or how we are with ourselves and with others. So if I am suppressing my tears because I'm sad, that will influence how that life force is moving through me. It doesn't make the life force go away. It just means that if there's a stream and there's a boulder in the middle of a stream, the water is going to flow differently than if there is not a boulder in the stream. And sometimes that big cry or something else that's moving through, when it's done in a healthy way, meaning not causing harm to oneself and not causing harm to another person, then that life force is going to do its good work of healing and not just get around the boulder, but actually find a new path, move the boulder, whatever, obliterate the boulder, whatever needs to happen for that person's well-being. That life force will help the healing to happen, help the sadness to move through, or whatever is happening. And then secondly, that life force, I believe, is the healing nature that we're all born with. And the most wonderful healing practitioners that I've come across, whether they're medical doctors or naturopaths or osteopaths or nutritionists or massage therapists, chiropractors, you name it, the ones that I really enjoy are the ones that know that their job is to just help that natural life force flow more freely. And that it's really the person's own being that's healing themselves with the help of the doctor. So sometimes we need surgeries or medicines or whatever. And the best case scenario is that whatever the healing practice is, the patient or the person who's healing gets to be healed. They get more free with whatever they're struggling with.
Yeah, you're just reminding me of, I have a psychotherapy background, and one of the things that we got told several times was, the person you're seeing must want to be there and must want to be healed too. So, you know, that flow is amazing. And you just reminded me of something I read on your page that said that you do polarity. And I was like,
yes.
What is that?
Yeah, please. Please explain.
Okay. I would love to. Oh, it's such a wonderful energy healing. So it goes into the category of body work, although it's usually a clothed kind of body work. So a person can just lay on a table or even sit in a chair. fully dressed. So there's no like oils or lotions. It's a different kind of body work. And it's just with the hands using positive and negative polarities of energy to move the energy through the body in a meaningful way to help with whatever the person wants help with, even if it's just, I want to relax or feel better, or I just want to enjoy this session of being with you. But sometimes people have specific ailments, like a difficult feeling in a shoulder or headaches or something like that. But it's all about energy. So it's looking at the body and how is the energy moving, and how might the practitioner work with the energy to flow even better.
So how do you know where the negative and the positive are?
Oh, well, there are certain places in the body that are naturally negative and positive,
Wow.
but there's sometimes a flip. So part of the polarity is balancing the positives and negatives in order for the flow to make sense. If you just think of magnets, it's a similar happening where the opposites attract and the similarities repel. So there's a way of working with those electrical charges in the body to encourage top to bottom and bottom to top and outward as well as inward in a way that stabilizes and harmonizes a person's well-being.
Wow, it's so fascinating, isn't it? We both have a little bit of background with Reiki. I've just got level 1. Have you ever been trained, or you've just had it done to you? And it sounded a lot like that, but it felt more complex because of the negatives and the positives. So that's amazing. That's so
never
interesting.
ever heard about it, to be honest.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I heard, for example, Ramon, that is a common friend of us. Yeah, basically he is actually level 2, I think it is, for Reiki.
No, I think he's level 3 now.
Level 3 now? Yeah. For Reiki. Yeah, and I remember that he treated me once. I had a big, how do you say? Well, I was stuck on my brain, basically. Yeah. I was completely blocked, I would say. Mentally. Yeah. No, I mean, it's something that happened. I have many things. I would say too many things in my head. I would say, yeah. For example, when Vera started giving me something like a little bit of your background, okay, and I straight away something I wrote 7 different questions, straight away. It's like, okay, yeah, so basically I'm gonna ask this, and so I'm sorry,
that's not necessarily a bad thing.
It sounds like you have a very quick intellect.
Yeah, for example, that thing that you said, about you having a really big family, and this is something that I would like to ask you, because I think also for the people that is going to listen to the podcast, it should be really interesting. That people sometimes, from time to time in their lives, they feel alone. Okay. So have you ever felt alone, because you have a really, really big family, actually? You know what I mean? So what do you think about loneliness, for a person that has something like you are 9 siblings, or?
Yeah, that's right.
So what do you think about loneliness in this particular, point?
Yeah, well, the deepest loneliness I've felt has been moving out here to Vermont from California. And most of my family's in California. And I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and most of my family lives out there. And I spent all my life in one particular area of the world. I've traveled, I've tried living other places, but I've always come back to that part of the globe. And then a little over 2 years ago, my partner and my son and I moved out here to Vermont, where we knew nobody.
Wow.
Zero people. And it's a different culture out here in Vermont. It's not quite the same as California. Of course, we're still in America, we're all speaking English, but there are these nuances of how friendships develop here compared to on the West Coast. And so I have had the kind of loneliness here that I haven't had before, where it was also the pandemic, so there was a natural isolation that everybody was experiencing. We live on a beautiful hilltop, but not in a neighborhood, so there aren't people next door. They're close, but it's not the same as like maybe a sidewalk where you have house. It's just a different environment. And boy, I haven't ever felt loneliness like I felt it in the last couple of years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it's really interesting that you can, because it's a completely different way of life, different scope. For example, we live in a block. Okay, so we are surrounded by people everywhere,
Yeah, but we don't know any of our neighbors.
Yeah, that much is true. Yeah, but this is why I was asking about loneliness, because sometimes you live in a particular situation where you could think that
you have everyone around you, but you still can be lonely.
Exactly. It's because of that I was asking. Also, sorry, but I had to ask. So you said that you are living in Vermont.
Yes.
Vermont. Do you know William Ackerman?
William Ackerman?
Yeah. It's an instrumentalist from Vermont.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I have to look him up.
Yeah. It's only that when you told me, I said, "Oh my God, it's the same place." Yeah.
And his music is very soothing.
Ooh, yeah.
You just reminded me of all the people who, when I say that I'm from Portugal, everyone asks me if I know Cristiano Ronaldo, and I'm like,
yeah. Okay.
what are you asking?
Yeah.
That's funny.
So man-like.
It is.
Well, there are a lot of musicians in this area, and there are also musicians in my family. So music isn't far off. And I see you have a musical instrument behind you.
Yeah, he plays a little bit.
Yeah, I try to play. Yeah, actually, William Ackerman is mainly playing guitar.
As well, yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah. There is a particular song that I love from him that remembers me, well, this particular kind of times that we're living. Because shortly will be Christmas time, okay? The song is called Visiting, okay? And it's
Visiting?
Visiting. And actually called something like this feeling that you have, for example, when you're visiting family, or, it's, quite interesting musician, I would say.
Oh, listen, thank you.
Yeah.
No.
And as I say, it's very soothing. And actually, that's actually bringing me to another thing I'd like to query with you, because with it being soothing is taking me to mindfulness, meditation. And another thing that I saw in one of your posts is meditation, co-creating meditation.
Oh, yeah.
Which
yes.
is a concept I've never heard of. So I'm really curious.
I'm so glad you're asking. This is one of my favorite things. It's so fun. So it's the way that I love to teach meditation. And what happens is I get to know the people that I'm teaching, right? So if I were having a meditation session with both of you, we're already having some rapport right now. And I might ask something like, what would you like to have in your meditation? What would be interesting for you to hear about? And there's always some guidance and always some silence. Silence is very important to me in meditation. But for the guided part, I find that people want very unique and interesting things, and it's not always the same. And some people want peace, and some people want to understand the truth of their being, and some people want their mind to calm down. And you can imagine all the rest. It's just very unique. And then I spontaneously create some guidance around what's being requested based upon how I know the person and what they're asking for. And so that's the co-creation, is that everybody gets a voice. If I'm with, one person, 2 people, 10 people, everybody gets a chance to request.
Oh, wow. I'm just thinking how that would work with a group of 10 people. How would you integrate all that? Because I'd imagine that there's different polarity. Well,
oh boy, Vera, you would be amazed. It's so fun. Because I don't always know. And sometimes people will come up with I'm working on a graduate school paper and I really am stuck with it. And I want a meditation to help me with that. And it'll be just very different from what everybody else is saying. And yet it's a wonderful experiment to sit in the truth of my being and just find what wants to be said. What wants to be said through me? Like, I'm getting out of the way. What wants to be said right now to these people who have gathered? What's the truth? And sometimes what arises is something thematic that gently holds everything. And sometimes there's a way to interweave all of the words that the people have said. And it's just unique every time. And so all of my guided meditations on Insight Timer or on my website or different places where they can be found, they're all based upon what somebody else has asked for. They're all of them. None of them are from me. They're all from what other people have requested. They're all a response. It's like a call and response. They call, I respond.
Oh, that's so interesting, because you're just reminding me of Kirtan, which is the call and response. The call is from the person who's guiding, the response is from the public, and you're totally the opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes, that's beautiful.
And just letting, the other thing that I find fascinating, and it's not the first time I've heard this, I would actually go as far as saying, even I was thinking about spiritual guides, but I suddenly my dad came to mind as well, because he was a musician as well. He played the accordion, and he would wake up in the middle of the night, and he'd had to get out of bed and go record the thing that he was imagining, because otherwise he'd forget about it, right? And this is a common thread that I find with artists and spiritual, I was going to say leaders, and I think you're in that category, but in a very not so weighty way, if I'm explaining myself properly, which is tapping into, getting out of the way and tapping into this almost universal knowledge and letting it guide you. Is that how it feels?
Yes, more or less. And thank you for that compliment. I appreciate your words. It's kind of a game I play. It's kind of a game. It's a little bit like, okay, creator, God, spirit, life force, energy, universal flow. Let's see. Let's see what happens. If I get out of the way, let's see what happens. And so I get to be amazed every time too. It's for all of us. And I'm included in this human family that the meditations are for.
I love the way you talk about play, like it goes exactly with everything you've said so far, is working with the good and the bad in life and just kind of almost dancing around that. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah. When did you notice that you inspire calm on people?
Say it again, Andreas.
Yeah, when did you notice that you actually inspire calm,
serenity
in people? Such a good question. You guys are really great to talk with. Well, if I go back to that moment when my mom left and my sister was very upset, there was something that was inspired in me because I felt sad. But I also saw the sadness of my younger sister. My father couldn't calm her. And I could calm her. And I didn't know that I could calm her. We were very young. I mean, 2 and 4. We were little kids. And I found a way to calm my sister. And that lasted for years. And we're both adults now. We both have children now. So our relationship is different. But growing up, I became a security blanket for my sister. And I lended myself to that role. And it helped her. And that was probably the first time that I saw that I could do good in that way. And then there's also been a healing journey from there to understand, okay, I have some gifts, but I also need to take care of myself. And I also need to make sure I'm receiving love and care, not just from myself, not just from the universal life force energy or whatever we want to call it, but also from other people. So part of my healing has been not just being a calming force, which is lovely and important and one of my favorite things to do, but also lend myself to other people's embrace so that I have movement in my life. I have giving and I have receiving. I have love around me. I have love in me. So it's all happening. And if I'm not getting the support I need, it's harder for me to be effective with others.
Yeah.
So well said. So beautiful. When you said, oh, and also, and I'm like, oh, wow. I was about to say, because obviously you said that you were 4 years old. So you had to soothe your sister. And then who helped you at that point in time?
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. It's
not for a long time.
Wow. So you had that weight with you for years, I'm imagining. And what was the turning point for you?
Wow. Let me think back and feel into it. Okay, there were two turning points. One was a very active turning point, and that is when I started playing soccer. I was only 8 years old, so still very young, but it allowed for me to be fierce, like run hard, play hard, be aggressive in a way that's contained and appropriate, because I always had this value to not hurt others, but I had a lot of energy in my being that needed to get out. So the soccer field became a place, like probably my first place of self-care, of true self-care, to get on the field, go after the ball and play hard. And so that was something that changed for me. And then also when I was a little older, when I was 9, I had my first breathwork teacher who was also my stepfather, and he was also my flute teacher. I played the silver flute. Wow. And I played through school, but he is still alive. He's a wonderful musician. And so because the flute involves breath, the first thing he did was teach me proper breath. And that was the first time that I was really surrendering to somebody's holding of me. He was offering something to me that wasn't just about music, it was about life. How to breathe into my body, how to make a belly breath and what that is, how to blow up the belly really big with the in breath and deflate that balloon really small on the out breath. And it helped me play, but it also helped me to live.
Wow. Wow, that's beautiful. It reminds me of a teacher, a singing teacher I had. I was in university, and she said that she had a major accident where she nearly died. And she said that the thing that helped her was going through that breath. Remembering to do that belly breath while she was waiting to be rescued was the thing that kept her alive. So that resonates so deeply as well. And it's almost like you've been in this massive car crash, which was the leaving of your mum. And at that point, you learned to almost live for yourself again. That's how it felt to me.
I grew a life from there. I really did. And so my mom did get custody of me again. And my sister as well. So there was a reconnection that was really lovely and meaningful, important, joyous, and safer. And from there, my stepfather was very helpful in giving me a sense of self that I didn't have before.
Wow. That's actually thrown another spanner in the works for me. How... See, knowing myself, if my mum left me, I probably would be a bit resentful. I'm wondering where it sat for you that you kind of almost abandoned and then you had that connection again?
Yeah, the resentment for me didn't come until later, because in the moment of between the ages 4 to 9, I really held my mother on a pedestal. I didn't want her to leave when she left. We did have some contact during those years. It just wasn't a lot. But my way of coping was to hold her very high in my mind and heart and in my vision. And she was a very nice person. She's no longer living here on this earth, but she was a very, very nice person. She just had some hopes and dreams that didn't go along with her being a mom. And she decided to go do her hopes and dreams. And when it was time for me to go live with her again, I really wanted to live with her. I really wanted to be with her.
So that helped obviously move that possible issue that could be you not understanding why she left.
Yeah. So for a time that worked out. And then later when I started studying psychology, I'm not a psychotherapist or a psychologist, but I have the beginnings of that kind of education. And I just decided to switch over to spiritual counseling instead. But when I was very entrenched, like really very deep into the psychological learning of how to work with the psyche, including my own, I became very angry with my mom. Because then I was like, what? Like, she left me when I was 4. Does she know what this means? Like, no wonder, blah, 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 blah. You know?
It opened that thing then.
Yes. So I was in my late 20s and I definitely got my taste of resentment.
Oh, wow. So it was there somewhere.
It's only normal. I mean, we are human.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, at the end of the day.
It's so interesting how we sometimes awaken to things that we don't really know that they're in the background, right? It's strange how, and then suddenly something rips something open in us, and we're like, oh, what's that? Right?
Precisely. Yeah. And also maybe because it was, how can I say, the fact that you were so young, you know, after that, when you started, how do you say, receiving more information and connecting ideas and maybe in your mind and this kind of thing, and then you say, fuck! Now I understand. Yeah.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I'm just kind of thinking about, do you want to, is there anything in particular you want to ask? Go on.
Many different things that I'd like to ask. But, you know, especially, you know, because you said you are living in Vermont, okay? And I pictured this place because of actually what I said, you know, mainly because of this musician, you know, and there is a particular YouTube video about one of his songs where I think he is something like supported by the back of 4T, you know, these old cars, you know, really typical in America, you know, and he's playing the bricklayer's daughter. Okay, is the name of the song. And what I think that this particular song actually was based, I mean, the video was based in Vermont, actually. It's something like where he used to live, okay? So I think that is a place where you find plenty of nature.
Yes.
Okay, and I would like to ask you, because I see that your first name is Rain. This is something that actually I really would like to ask so many things. But you know, the first one that I would like to ask is, what's your nature? What's your relationship with nature? How do you feel when you are in nature?
Nature soothes me every time. And I'm so lucky to live in a forest. We have 52 acres, 50 of which are wild. And every time I walk the trails or just wander through the woods, I get this breath, this fresh breath that I need. And it's not just living here in Vermont. I'm just very lucky to live in the middle of nature here in Vermont, but in California as well, and hiking the Swiss Alps and other places in the world. I just love 100% nature. I love the natural world, and there's so much to learn in watching nature and watching the birds and learning about the different creatures in the water or the trees or the air, all over the place, in the soil. There's so much. Worlds and worlds of wisdom.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think it's quite interesting to observe nature, because it's like, I mean, it links to the idea that we were discussing at the very beginning of this podcast, sorry, and it's about flow. Because when you see nature, what you see is flow, is the flow of existence.
Vera and Andreas rock my world completely. And yes, I agree with Andreas that nature is the flow of existence. So stay tuned for part 2 next Friday. You will get to hear more from Vera and Andreas and their sweet, thoughtful, mindful, introspective ways of being in conversation. And remember, you are getting a taste of the Peculiar Exchange podcast launching soon. I can't wait to hear all of the conversations they're going to have with amazing people in this world. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much for listening. It has been a great joy to have your presence here in this podcast. I welcome you to celebrate the joy and wisdom in your life exactly as it is. And I welcome you to feel loved, fully loved, exactly as you are. www.reignelizabeth.org